together.
All right. We are going to call our meeting to order. This is a special call meeting, the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Our agenda is basically to discuss the 1% legislation and its proposed use for the development of Cornerstone Tournament and Recreation Park and improvements to existing parks. So, and that was the call of the meeting. So what I can tell you is, as of today, I got a notice from our lobbying group that the bill has passed out of the Senate and is now headed to the governor's desk, and hopefully, according to all the people who are in the know, it should be signed this week, and from that we will then be able to determine when we're going to do a referendum, which is going to require us to adopt a resolution. And Mr. Latimer has drafted that for us with the to be filled in for dates and that sort of thing. So what I would like us to do is take a look at what Mr. Logan has done for us to kind of say where we are in terms of the projects that we have done, the things that we want to look at as the next 3 years for existing parks, and then look at Cornerstone Park and see out of that what we can afford to do and which direction we want to go. And this is obviously not a definitive meeting. This is one of those, it's just a, start thinking about it and talking about it so that we can move forward in a very positive way. So, has anybody heard anything different? I assume the governor hadn't signed it yet because I haven't heard anything. Vice Mayor, you're usually in the know. Have you heard whether or not there's actually been a signature anywhere?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Okay, well, we will assume there won't be any hiccups in that since it's been passed through the House and passed through the Senate. So, and hopefully this week we will get that signature and we could either take up that resolution, depending on what happens, we could conceivably take that resolution up on Tuesday and then set a date to it if we get it signed by then. So, and if the governor doesn't sign it, I know it's 10 days, right? From the time that he receives it, he has 10 days to sign it. So, and I think they all want to get out of the legislature at the end of this week. So I'm very hopeful that we will be able to set that up for Tuesday and put that resolution in front of everybody and see where we want to go with that. So, having said that, Mr. Logan has put together, he's got a PowerPoint that he sent to Joel, and he's got it loaded up there. So what I would like him to do, if you don't mind, Gary, if you would kind of take us through that, and when you get to the projected stuff, I think there's some opportunity for dialogue there about what we want or don't necessarily want in some of those parks. So we'll kind of follow along with you. Is that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, is that okay with everybody at the board? Is that a good plan? Okay.
And some of this may seem a little bit redundant. We did get, I guess, piece some of this from the work session on the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm gonna hit the highlights of, recap of some
Just capital projects,
yeah.
right?
So we'll spend a lot more time towards the end with the 3-year projected. All right, so this is a map from the comprehensive plan. So everyone knows we do have the 7 total parks, and just a note that we don't manage or maintain the fire station park that's leased out to the partnership. All right, first off, Sportsplex. Quick note on inventory, just, everybody knows, anybody watching. So, yeah, it's got the Travis Outlaw Center, 2 full-size indoor basketball, and indoor walking track, meeting rooms, and 2 racquetball, 7 soccer fields, 8 softball fields, and an outdoor pavilion. So that's the park inventory, and some highlights of improvements that we've made just since, the last few years. The accessibility, which we highlighted not long ago. If you've seen our Facebook, so we've done our best to address some accessibility and plan on doing some more of that. We've added some landscaping behind Cadis and KFK fields. New soccer goals and nets were bought last year, both for the local league, but also in anticipation of the Memorial Cup that's coming this year. Some temporary fencing, pitch and screen portable mounds, and new water fountains. And then inside the Travis Outlaw Center, new floors. If you've been in there, you notice the new floors, laminate flooring, really nice. We've done some purchase of portable basketball goals, again, a league purchase. Concessions equipment has been updated, and then the LED lighting on the building exterior. So that's by no means, there's lots of other slightly smaller things, but just some of the highlights. And what we're currently having the works for the Sportsplex, the field signage and scoreboard panels, which is related back to the field sponsor program. So you'll see a lot of those going up new, baseball, softball and baseball fields very soon. And then some other drainage improvements that we're currently working on.
And those are, where are those drainage improvements real quick?
So we've got the culverts or the drain pipes. So we have several inlets within the park, some pipe failures, and we're doing our best to find some some long-term improvements for that. Pipes that just keep sucking dirt and causing some issues, liability issues around. So we're working to get those fixed long-term. And then I say drainage improvements, we have been and continue to do various improvements related to athletic fields, just ongoing maintenance, but trying to, do some better fixed stuff, rental of equipment to do some better fixes related to soccer field drainage too, so.
So is it mostly in the soccer field area?
Yeah, so when I put drainage improvements here, it's really related to those, the inlet pipes or the pipe drainage. Those are the bigger problem or bigger fix. The athletic fields is more of an ongoing drainage maintenance issue. Anything there? Run through. And just some pictures of these. So you'll see the LED lighting, which is very, very bright on the far right. And then the rest, you'll notice, the sidewalk, the before and after, soccer nets, that landscaping, and there in the bottom left is a picture of our temporary fencing with a lot of cars in the background visiting Starkville.
That temporary fencing's really pretty nice too. I was out there the other day.
It made a huge difference.
Yep.
It's a very, very good thing to see when you first walk in for a tournament and leave. McKee, obviously another very, very heavily used park. It's got 6 total baseball fields, the 3 playground units, a couple of swings, all that's located within the Kidplex, the musical trail area. You've got the basketball court, 4 tennis courts, and 2 outdoor pavilions. Some recent improvements, the roofing at the large pavilion. Very, a large project was the chain link fence repair for Buffalo Wild Wings and Golden Triangle Bain Center fields, which has been completed. We continue to work on various sidewalk improvements for accessibility. We've gotten some done and have more coming. Gravel landscape timbers to that secondary parking area by Zaxby's Field, batting cage net, tennis backboard, then grills, water fountains. And then further back, shortly after I started, actually were some accessible swings that were added to that park. And then rule sign and 2 new backflow preventers. Those are all relatively recent. And then you'll see the scheduled projects. McKee's got a lot in the works. The new backstop netting for those 2 middle baseball fields, currently Buffalo Wild Wings and Bain Center. The new spiral slide. The slide went out recently. We're working on a replacement for that. The resurfacing of the basketball court, we're actually trying to do that system-wide. We're just waiting on a second quote so we can resurface our basketball courts throughout the city. And then the new field signage and scoreboard panels related to the field sponsor program. And then you'll see just, again, more and more irrigation controls, light timers, more batting cage nets, and a small sandbox area. So a lot in the works for McKee.
When do the timers on the lights go in?
Just whenever we can get with the vendor over the next couple of weeks. So. And there you see some of the pictures, the accessible swings in the bottom right, and then the roof right there next to that, and tennis backboard. And I did my best to get a before and after on the chain link. It's really hard to really see the improvement unless you physically go out there, though. It's a big improvement for those fields. J.L. King Park, another very, very large park with a lot of different inventory. That's why this length is so lengthy. The football field, I put baseball, softball field because it's primarily used as softball, but we've actually been using it for baseball more recently. We've got a mound out there right now. The walking track, splash pad, the new playground with the musical trail area, little drums. We've got 2 basketball courts there, the tennis court, what's currently a 7-hole disc golf course, 2 outdoor pavilions, and then the J.L. King Center, which is currently being utilized by the school.
Can I ask a disc golf question?
Sure.
Do they not have 9 holes?
Well, that was a goal, but for spacing purposes, it ended up being 7.
So typically it would have 9, okay.
Correct. We have 2 baskets waiting in the wings.
Okay,
But
it's
yeah.
an ignorance question. I just
No, not at all. Not at all. Typically 9 is what you'd like to see.
Okay.
Yeah. So the improvements over there, the new playground was installed last year, new roof on that upper pavilion, the bucket for the splash pad, which was very recent. We've renovated that baseball softball field and actually, continue to work on that. And actually going to have some league play out there this spring. The disc golf course, the musical trail to that playground area was added. Tennis nets, again, continuing maintenance. Walking track benches, which is something we again do system wide, but got some new wood for those benches over there. Landscaping around the building, kind of change that around a little bit. Grills, tables, and rules sign, again, things that we've been able to do in several parks. And as far as schedule goes, again, we're including the J.L. King Park basketball courts for our resurfacing project. Just waiting on the second quote there so we can get those resurfaced. And then working through the logistics of getting the mountain bike trail out there. on that property to the east.
And that's an area that's not used at all right now, right?
It's just heavily wooded and hilly and,
No program.
No
Correct,
program use.
correct. Undeveloped currently. And then getting some pictures, that splash, the water buckets up in the top right, and then that nice, beautiful playground with the musical trail in the bottom right, and the disc golf course in the middle, and then I did my best standing up on top of a trash can to get a picture of that new roof on the upper pavilion.
here, I see a workers' comp headed that way. so.
Good. Oh. Moncrief, another popular park, of course has our pool and dog park, one new playground and an outdoor pavilion.
Vice Mayor, is Moncrief the oldest park in the city of Starkville? Or you may know Alderman Bond.
Hold it, I'm
I'm sorry, or Mayor. I was working my way around the table.
I was gonna say,
I
time
always
out,
use-
we're older than,
I use him for all my institutional memory. He's good for it.
and it was around when we were around, so as far as I know, it's the oldest in,
Okay.
other than we use school park areas, Overstreet, we had a park, has a park kind of area, but yeah. Don't make him as old as.
He's my institutional memory, so.
All right, quick, the list of improvements over there, the new playground was installed technically in 2018, it was at the very end of 2018. The new dog park equipment was installed last fall. New landscaping, which we've done that to multiple areas over there. The new ADA parking pad, which was like last week, 2019. The new driveway to the pavilion, which was on Friday, because I was there. Trent and a couple of our guys were out there doing that Friday. New rule signage. The pool, we did a windscreen project, which was relatively small, but made a big difference over there. The free sunscreen station this past summer was really nice and a good hit. Plumbing in the restrooms, and then additional seating and shade areas for the pool. And then the scheduled projects, we're working to repurpose the former playground site to sand volleyball. Just because, again, aside from the other option was digging 3 feet down and trying to replace with dirt, but instead we're going to just mull it up and make it sand.
But tell why you chose the volleyball.
So a variety of reasons. We definitely had a call for it. We've had multiple inquiries over the past year or so from an adult group that plays sand volleyball in the community, and they don't have a place to play other than maybe crashing some of the apartment complexes or Sanderson Center. So we don't have that type of park amenity within our park system yet. So it's a new addition. But the facility market report for that facility, Moncrief, indicates that I think the median age is around 32, which is right in that sweet spot for the age that we want to meet for the park. So it's a good chance of taking the opportunity to repurpose something that's there and to, without having to spend a ton of money, and it's a good fit for what the data we have on the park.
I just think the data part's cool,
Yeah.
that you kind of do that based on the demographics of the area, so.
Scheduled new picnic tables, benches for the pavilion, just add some more there, and then plumbing at the pavilion, just some pavilion upgrades over there will be scheduled. George Evans, so off of Gillespie Street, it's got the Needmore Community Center, an outdoor basketball court, a playground, a gazebo, and then the swings. Done some improvements over there, the new gazebo roof, which was part of that project with Keep Starkville Beautiful. Really cool, great project. The swings were replaced. Picnic tables, that again was part of that Keep Starkville Beautiful project. We've got new kitchen equipment inside the Needmore Community Center, and then scheduled to replace the basketball goals, add landscaping, and also resurface the court over there.
That's a park you don't really see. The building blocks it, and then when you come in from the other direction, you just see the basketball court.
And I included the pictures on this. Yep, it is. It really is. And it's a great area to have a picnic. And as you can see from the pictures, the before and after was incredible over there, and it still looks great. The gazebo, it is really a nice park, a well shaded park, which you don't always get. So. And then the last two we'll hit on, our other two were Patriots and.
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
What about the small park, Josie Park?
It's right here, that's where he's
Right.
headed.
Okay, yeah.
I missed it somewhere. I missed
I
it.
Yep,
think,
yep.
no, it's still on the same page with Patriots
Yes.
Park, so it kind of doubled them up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you doubled it. Okay.
Yes. So this slide right here, we have Patriots and Josie. Again, they're smaller parks. Again, we have a couple of different classifications based on size, but Patriots and Josie are more than the neighborhood, smaller neighborhood park around. We put in, updated picnic tables. There is a new chalkboard art station, which we were able to work with a community group on at Patriots. We've done some landscape adjustments over to Josie and then a new bench, but looking forward to adding some more. It's a very, very small park, Josie is, but we are looking forward to doing some improvements. We can certainly do something with
And
that.
at one time, it had a community market, or what am I trying to say,
Garden.
farm, yeah,
Yeah.
garden, thank you.
Well, we did.
And it's not effective anymore, right? It's not.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
We
We had
take down the fencing and everything that goes with it?
we haven't yet, but we had a volunteer group that was managing that for us,
Right.
and they've really kind of gone away. But we're actually going to restart a community garden at Jail King Park. That's in the works.
Where?
Behind the community center, the school district's actually working through
Okay.
that right now, and we've applied for a grant. That was part of the presentation on
Right.
the 15th. I'm still kind of waiting to hear the answer on that. But either way, the school district and Mississippi State Extension has expressed interest in doing it at Jail King Center. So it may be a slow process, and the school district may lead the way in the beginning, but we are going to have kind of the ability to meet that need through our facilities. It's just not directly all of us.
Okay, cool. So now we have the 3-year projected capital project.
Yes, so this is obviously the
This
fun
is a fun
stuff.
start, yeah.
Yes, so the fun stuff to talk about for sure, but by all means, stop me and discuss. And again, this is a very, very rough draft written in very light pencil, despite it being the presentation. So these are things we've either come out from the comprehensive plan, just our generic research, knowing the needs of the community, the needs to update a lot of the infrastructure in the parks. So within this first year, and I've got listed on here 10/1/19 as a start date, but really could be potentially sooner on some of these. So this is really basically now until the end of that fiscal year, which would be September 30th of 2020. So we'd like to renovate the Moncrief Park Pavilion. It's certainly old. We've got constant bathroom issues over there, and this would kind of all one fell swoop address that. And since we've got a new playground and want to add park amenities over there, updated bathroom and working pavilion, so we can certainly highlight that as a great rental facility would be much needed and welcome. Constructing outdoor pickleball courts. We have a pickleball group playing 3 times a week at the gym, and that seems to only be growing. So that's an option and something we potentially like to go ahead and get on, get in the works. The addition of a restroom at Patriots Park, huge need. That's a great small park, but again, we could put a restroom in over there, and we'll propose to do that. Park access and security. I know that's a generic term, but adding some entryway gates to various park areas, adding additional security cameras to monitor our facilities specifically, addressing storage areas and fencing those storage areas, specifically behind the Travis Outlaw Center. We've already got a small storage area there, so we'd like to not close off the driveway because that's how you get to the dump, the trash. The trash dump area, but just being able to fence in a small area. So this really encompasses a lot of different things, but that's why I put it as park access and security. Construct the bathrooms at the Jail King Park football field. We already have one football team playing out there during the fall. We have pretty frequent use of the walking track area and a number of events that host out at Jail King Park, and this would add a restroom to that football field, which currently if you walk on that walking track, you're either going to the splash pad or walking all the way down the pavilion, so it would
So I
be
was
a
going to
big
say, that'll
need.
give us 3, right?
Correct.
And that's a big park. You
It
need
is a big park.
Very. It is a very, very large park, and this also sets us up for something we'll talk about just a little bit. But again, just the bathroom at Jail King Park football field would really transform and make the I guess the northern end even more usable than it already is, which is that football field area. So replace the McKee Park playground. Yes, we had the slide broken recently, and we're doing our best to fix it. But that slide breaking is really indicative of a bigger issue. Is that playground unit, which is a very, very large playground unit, is 15 plus years old. So it's certainly due for replacement. It's at the top of the list as far as our current assets of playgrounds. It's really at the top of the list of what needs to be replaced before we, certainly adding new is definitely an option. But the McKee Park playground is certainly it's in line to be replaced. What I put on here was proposing to potentially replace it with a wheelchair accessible unit. We don't have that in our park system now. Most of our playground units, or all of our playground units, are ADA accessible, but not wheelchair accessible. So if someone on a wheelchair, they can wheel up to the playground, but they have to access the playground through what you call a transfer unit. So they park their wheelchair and scoot along the playground. So this would propose and add a wheelchair accessible, so they could physically wheel up on and use the playground.
Okay, so
Sure, go ahead.
I saw your hand first
No, go ahead.
before my mouth opened. Go ahead.
Well, the big yellow slide, which is broken and has gone away now, I know you're looking at replacing it. Does it make sense to do this at the same time?
Short answer is yes. So we can
Okay.
replace the playground, that slide would be a standalone slide. It wouldn't add a slide back to the current unit. It would
Okay.
be kind of a separate,
Okay.
just a separate
Okay.
feature.
So it's not something we would put in and then take out?
Correct. It's not, it would not be within the current footprint of what you said, the larger, and I say replace the McKee playground, I'm talking about really primarily that central
Right.
largest unit, which is, the replacement cost is certainly in this ballpark, especially if you go with a wheelchair accessible unit. Playground equipment, everybody's surprised. We got a number of people that reached out about the McKee slide and wanted to help, and playground equipment is a lot more expensive
They
than
were
you would think
surprised,
it is.
weren't they, when they found
Yes,
out how
yes.
much?
It's a little different than the $100 slide in your backyard kind of thing.
Correct,
yeah.
correct.
My question was gonna be, is this, and I don't have an order of magnitude in terms of size, but I know we bought a really big one, or we were donated a really big one that went into Moncrief. Is it the same size thing? It just has different features? I mean, is
Hey.
it that big or
A little
bigger?
bigger, maybe?
The unit is, so a wheelchair accessible playground, so what we would do is work with the companies, part of the design process, and work to determine if we would go within the current footprint or just move it over. There's lots of space over there. So we, could move to the north to where there's the walking path already and just open green space right now. So we would just have to evaluate if any new unit, wheelchair accessible unit would fit within that current footprint, or if we just need to move it a little bit.
Okay, all right, so you could potentially keep the one you got till it just totally fell apart? Is that what you're saying?
Could,
Okay.
yeah. As long as we
Understand there's
pass
some
it,
rust-
as long as we
rust
pass
issues
it,
there.
well, once we host the playground safety inspector course, we'll see if it
The
passes.
new one? Okay.
Oh, the new one's all
I'm
plastic?
sorry, the one that's there now. Somebody told me there was rust on the chains. That may have been 5 years ago.
Well, we can probably spray WD-40 on that and clean that up.
And then the last thing under this first year that you see would be the addition of a covered basketball pavilion. We don't have one of these.
I'm pretty geeked about this
Yeah,
personally.
yes, I certainly am. If I'm not mistaken, Tupelo has one, but theirs is covered by a canvas cover, not a hard like metal cover. But we had them in College Station. They were fantastic because it allows you to play basketball in the rain. Very, very heavily used. So this proposes that we would add a covered basketball pavilion at George Evans Park over the current basketball court. So it would open up another, people are already playing basketball over there, but again, it would just allow more play. That park, as noted in our facility market report, is I think the median age for that area was about 22, 23-ish. So very, very young area within the adjoining streets, and we know there's lots of basketball played over there. This will just open up even more time frames and even during rain. So, and again, a new feature that we just flat out don't have.
I think that'd be great too, so, okay.
We got one thing before you
Yes,
go
sir.
further. At the two pavilion at JL King Park, there's no water fountain near neither one of those pavilions. So somewhere down the line, we're gonna need it. We can do that in-house,
Right.
though.
And yes, and I actually meant to mention that there's a lot of projects, and that would be a good example of, because yeah, we have some other water fountains we have planned to put up over there. Is that there's a lot of smaller projects that don't necessarily
Rise to
hit
that
this
level.
list on a capital improvement level, but we're going to do in-house.
What's a water fountain cost? Because we replaced,
It's probably.
we
the-
replaced some last year, right, as opposed to putting in new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what
some
is
of the newer, like the concrete, the more heavy-duty ones we have are in the 1 to 2,000 range, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
that's
We
de
have
minimis in the scheme of things.
We do have a few in stock. It's just you have to dig out an area and
Okay.
connect the
Well,
water.
connect
but-
the water, yeah.
Right, yeah, and
Okay.
we do have a couple of scheduled more that we have currently already that were purchased that will be installed.
Okay,
So like the JL King Park basketball area too.
okay, and that's toward the back there. Okay.
Yes.
So do we have plans for 2 of those in JL King or 1 or?
I'd have to double check about what we have currently in stock, but we can absolutely order more.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just curious what the plan was.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Meant to note that at the beginning. There's lots of other projects that we'll continue to do in-house like that.
That are more maintenance.
And adding a basketball courts was another one that I know gets brought up. That's again something that could potentially be added without necessarily rising to a capital project. New basketball courts it's kind of on the cusp of that 20,000 level, so we might be able to, we're planning to look at adding more, but not necessarily as a capital project. So.
Okay.
All right, first year, questions? All right, so second year, need more community center renovation. Put on here this, just doing any number of things as far as renovating that building, basically replacing the building. So 150,000 just as a really rough estimate, yeah, for that. But it's certainly in need of it. We do have some rentals over there. It's used as a voting complex and it's used as an after-school and summer program. But depending on what the long-term vision is for that park and that facility, it's certainly in need of a major renovation. The replacing of the Travis Outlaw Center roof. We have minor leaking issues right now and have been able to patch them without any serious concerns, but that's, again, the plan is and thought is that's going to have to be addressed for real, so that's where that's in there. The addition of a playground at Josie Park, we could add a small playground unit for that, and again, we're waiting on the facility market report for that facility, but are expecting to get back results. There's certainly families in the area, and then be able to install a new small playground unit there. The city contribution for the Starkville High School tennis restrooms. This is more of a discussion item that, in discussion with the high school, they certainly need a restroom at the tennis facility, and part of our management agreement with the high school about the tennis is to split it between the city, the school, and the tennis association. So this is kind of a placeholder item as well, but some.
Would it be 40,000 if it's split 3 ways?
Approximately.
That's a lot of bathroom.
Bathroom, meeting room, type, yes.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh, okay, meeting room.
Well, excuse me, like a tournament office.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
All right.
just being able to have some type of small office there. They don't have any indoor storage either.
Nothing now, they just
Yeah.
Right.
meet up.
I just didn't realize it was a meeting room.
They just meet up in the pavilion.
Yeah,
down there.
right. Yeah, they have the 2 pavilions there, but yeah, so it was storage and kind of an office tournament desk type thing.
They don't
Yeah.
put nothing personal.
Yeah, all their stuff is stored outside right now at tennis courts.
Okay.
Yeah. The J.O. King Park walking track overlay, put that in here.
Does that include a widening of it too, or is that just an overlay?
We could certainly widen. I think it's 10 or 12 now. We could certainly widen it.
Well, I didn't know. Alderman Vaughn, isn't that widening, did I remember that correctly?
Widening, that's what we widen
Okay.
is.
Okay,
And
all right.
overlaying it,
Yeah.
yeah. Long overdue.
The play unit and infrastructure for Academy Road Park. So currently, there is not an Academy Road Park. However, we do have access to property that's behind the fire station that's on Academy Road. There's a fire station and utilities property area. So again, this can absolutely be an item of discussion, but we have nothing southeast. So for South Montgomery area, and this would seek to meet that need. Develop a green space, put in a play unit. Potential pavilion, which is mentioned later, but just develop that play space.
Well, I'm inclined to move that one to later on, because there's some things over here that I think we ought to move
It helps with our money.
forward a
We
little
can push
bit,
it
yeah.
forward.
Sure.
Yeah, so, and since it's nothing anybody contemplated anyway.
Sure.
It's kind of like,
But what I will say is I appreciate that. I think one of the things that what we've learned from the fire station park is that the city owns a lot of property.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is in very strategic locations. And so to think about how do we best use that for the long-term good, I think is, so I appreciate you bringing that forward, and I think that is definitely a worthy thing to discuss. I think we have a lot of those little places around where a little more seating, a little more lighting could go a long way. So I appreciate the sentiment.
well, in fact, he's reached out to the Grace Presbyterian Church, did you not? And you responded, because they've got a big parking lot they just
Correct.
did. And a little bridge going across the creek there would give you, access to it. It's not one of those things that's been really contemplated. We just kind of talked about it.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
And that certainly could seem like a high cost, but if we utilize that parking lot, we need a small pedestrian bridge and just, it'd be a lot of things that would go into that, but, correct. Last thing, yes, it's on here, it may not be necessarily on there, this, discussion item, and actually wouldn't necessarily be part of the city's capital project, is lights for the J.L. King Park football field. Discussing with Starkville Utilities today about how exactly to implement that. But basically, long story short, we would be able to implement that and really not affect this capital project.
Well, except that I'd like it to be reflected on here,
Right.
because I think it
Correct.
shows that we've got a commitment to
Correct.
that. So I would like to see it, at least, even if it's not part of the funding, if it's a different funding source, but we could show it as something that we're going to be doing. And I think I'd like us to show that as a future.
And parks will pay for it, it's just gonna be paid for over a number of years, and that's what keeps it from falling onto this list in a
Right.
traditional capacity, because we don't have to do all the money at once.
Right, so it absolutely should be noted, so I believe it made it in there on your actual, you'll see just a little bit about the money per park, but yeah, just, we were going back and forth on the various iterations of the presentation, but yeah, just certainly wanted to point that out and note that is absolutely, part of what we'd like to propose is to light that park. Certainly come in handy. It would open up the football team that's out there using that now. They use it purely daylight hours, but also open up for various other multi-purpose uses
Well,
as
and
well throughout
events,
the
I
year.
mean, so yeah. Okay.
And in combination with the bathroom we've already talked about, then
Yeah.
you've got a very much full service, multi-purpose field. So,
Yeah, and it could serve, soccer, lacrosse, it could serve for any number of different sports, right?
all right, correct. It's a very, very large field.
Yeah.
In the third year, skate park is something that we've heard about, certainly get asked about somewhat frequently. It's kind of like playgrounds, as folks don't realize just how expensive they can be, and it's a lot of concrete. But you've got the concrete, and then of course the liability aspect to it. But again, this is discussion item, the addition of the skate park at the Sportsplex. I also know, Sportsplex, but McKee, as far as exact location, could depend on a number of things. But in that area, certainly a good fit, somewhere with parking, somewhere nowhere near a neighborhood, just 'cause, hours and things like that. But a skate park is certainly that we do get asked about, and believe would be a very, very good asset in the park system.
Okay, using your demographics, and I don't mean necessarily location, but I guess I do, but who uses, is that a millennials, is that high schoolers?
Would
What
they
ages?
drive to a park? Would they-
Teen,
Yeah.
teen. So yeah,
I'm sorry?
Teen.
Teens? Okay.
So I would say teenage
Okay.
primarily, and
Okay.
even some college. But what we see is teens. So we'll see the folks that come to the Sportsplex, or more often the ones that use the tennis court for that. Which tennis players and
Okay.
and skateboarders tend
Okay.
to be at conflict, but primarily teenage and young adult.
Okay, I know we just had a Facebook post from someone who was talking about somebody's skateboarding on Old West Point Road. So obviously people are using skateboards in ways that I remember them a long time ago using.
Right.
So, and I do have you ever priced a climbing wall? Have you ever looked at a climbing wall for?
I do not know off the top of my head exactly. I just know you have to staff them. That's the only thing. But,
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But I do not know what it would take off the top of my head to do one.
Okay,
Depending on the
just,
height.
it was a curiosity question. Okay.
So the skate park, again, something we certainly don't have. A very welcome addition. What I put in here for the multi-use trail connectivity project, at some point, a very, very good idea for a variety of reasons to address this, because again, from the comprehensive plan, we do not have trails within our current park system. And while we just applied for a grant to hopefully add some, waiting on the answer there. It's certainly something I think that going to a capital project to address this, and without necessarily tying this to a specific park. I think one of the main goals of any multi-use trail is connectivity. So whether that's again, throwing out ideas, by no means binding, but maybe this is connecting J.L. King Park to Moncrief through greenways. Maybe it could be not necessarily within what you imagine as a park system, just a greenway type trail. So
Lost Chris.
just something that I think we really, really need to continue to put in our minds and think about devoting funds to multi-use trail projects. So, and then last one on this third year is the rentable pavilion at the Academy Road Park, and just adding another pavilion. We haven't had a new rentable pavilion really added, so if we were to be able to develop that area near South Montgomery, I think adding a pavilion to add as a rental capability would be a very, very good project to do. So.
Okay.
And then last item we just put a note here about unfunded new pool. We certainly hear about that, but a new pool is a very, very costly project. So it's certainly a topic of discussion. But You know, to do a new pool, especially if you wanted to add competition lanes and make sure that it's proper length to do competitions, you know, high school, college, even type swimming competitions, being able to host swim teams, things like that. But also making it a zero entry pool. Right now, you know, you have to climb down a ladder, and we have an ADA chair, so if someone comes in, we have to literally lift them down into the pool. It needs to be a zero entry pool, so it's accessible. You know, kiddie play area, things like that. So a new pool facility, it's certainly something that is a worthy discussion, but it's very, very costly. So.
And this is not even an auditorium, because that jacks it up another $500,000 or better. So you're just talking about an outdoor pool that is larger.
If we tried to do a new version of what we had now, I mean, this isn't even, you know, 1.5 is probably really not even that nice.
Low ball?
And not even that large.
Yeah.
It's similar to what we have now, just to update it, make sure, you know, updating the pool house, you know, make sure we have good plumbing, good restrooms, things like that, good changing areas, to make it kind of a modern type outdoor pool. But yeah, it is very costly, so that's really what that's about.
And it also comes with a lot of ongoing expenses,
Right.
lifeguards and
I
stuff.
think the boys and girls got an indoor pool in their project.
They're talking
that?
about
Well,
doing it.
that'd be
Yeah,
great.
I would sure advise against it. Only because it is such incredibly expensive and high maintenance kind of project. And we just closed that one at J.L. King because it wasn't being used. So I don't know. And maybe with the Boys and Girls Club there it would.
You
I'm
had
sorry.
about a $500,000 leak that you
Yeah.
you wouldn't have been able to afford
Yeah.
to fix it. And
Yeah.
plus the liability.
Yeah. Well, and it may be that might very well be something that they could afford to do, and that'd be great if we could get that in, because that'd be in addition to it. So, okay, so from well, I guess you got another page, don't you? I'm
Right,
sorry.
and
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to take this to be able to summarize, and please note, you know, the on Moncrief, that 420, that was originally what was in there for the pool, so that's actual accurate number is just the 30 for Moncrief, but the placeholder at the end being for unfunded for the pool project. But everything else, just kind of note what it would look like, you know, for all of our parks, all the different areas, what that would look like. So I wanted to get a good visual of where it would be spread.
All over town. Huh?
Yep, correct. So,
Okay, so is there anything, and I'm asking Alderman this, is there anything that you guys see that's missing from what we want to do with our current parks before we go into our dream project? Is there anything that we
Mention
didn't?
the water fountains.
Okay,
like that.
well, we'll make note of
And
those.
ADA sidewalk, bathroom, you know. At the other pavilion on the hill up there, there's no ADA, but you already
Okay.
talked about that. That's something that we're gonna try to do
No.
now. We already talked about the water fountain. And,
I'd just say, and I'm sorry, I'll wait till you're done, Alderman.
and splash pad had another 2 more phases go to it. I don't know when we gonna do that.
I don't know about, what are the other
There's 2
phases?
more phases go to it.
Really?
Yeah.
haven't heard that, but
I'm not familiar.
Set up with 3 phases.
Huh, okay. Do you have those plans somewhere?
I don't.
Okay.
It was Kubion. That's who did it.
Okay, all right, well, let me make myself a note to get in touch. Is Neil Kuvion or Joe?
That's who
Okay,
did it.
Neil?
One of Kubion, that's who did
Okay.
it.
That's who both of them.
correct.
Okay, all right, well, let me
Okay.
see if I can get up with him and see what the phases are.
Yeah, had not heard that.
Me
About
neither.
2 more phases.
Yeah, okay. Did that include the bucket thing, or is that just a
It's
gimme?
2 more areas out there.
Yeah, okay, all right,
2 more areas out there where you plan to put something there.
all right.
I don't remember.
And again, like there was a number of other things that, you know, we're working to do in-house, I'd love to see, and we're currently working on now about replacing system-wide benches, picnic tables, things like that, but we have some other plans for that, and gonna try to meet that need in other ways before it becomes necessarily a capital improvement project, but just a lot of other things that may not necessarily make that list that we're constantly working on,
Right.
and we'll add to if I did this presentation in a month, it'll probably look even more, you know, significantly different. Just continuously update the running project list, so.
Okay, all right.
And I'd like to say about McKee, the things that I see a need for, in terms of people using the parks in different ways, they probably need another basketball court there too. And then a dog park. That's an area where there are a lot of apartments and residential areas that don't have access to green space. And so, and dog parks should be pretty cheap.
Well, we don't have one on the south side either, so that'd be kind of a balance there.
I'll agree with the dog park in McKee. I think people have an image of a dog park and they know the one that we go to here, and that's certainly applicable to a place like McKee. I think George Evans and Fire Station Park are more applicable to an urban style dog run. And there's zero doubt in my mind, if you did the demographic data there, half the people over there have a dog.
What's a dog run? Educate me, please.
It's going to be smaller than a typical
Dog park.
Crossgates has one. Crossgate, if I'm not mistaken, Crossgates has one.
I haven't been there. I'll go check it out. But it's going to be a fenced-in area, usually separates small and large dogs. It is a place to be able to unleash them while there are other things going on in the park. So I would say in your urbanizing areas and places, you see more and more of those.
It's compact is what.
It's compact.
Yeah.
It's compact, and is desperately in need and would drastically improve the conditions around our neighborhoods where people are walking their dogs currently.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I know Gary and I have chatted about some is the Needmore Center being in such rough shape. It would be nice to just take it down and put something else in its place that would be, I think, that would be nicer. And it also gives you a visual to the park area that you don't currently have now, because you really can't see all the stuff behind it at this point. You don't really know what's there.
Yeah, I don't want to get off in the weeds on that, but I have a lot of thoughts about
Okay.
the Needmore Center and George
Okay.
Evans Park, and I think it is clearly a facility that means a whole lot to a lot of people. But I do believe that the actual building itself is in desperate need of lots of attention.
Oh, I was talking about was the
But
building.
I do agree is that the area changes over there. One of the things that keeps people from using that park is it doesn't have very high visibility.
Yeah.
And so finding a way to open that up from the Gillespie side street to be able to see the park would allow people to use it much more. So.
Does the building itself have some? It doesn't have any historic character, does it? The metal building doesn't have any, does it?
I don't know, Perkins.
I mean, I don't. From the neighborhood's perspective, or they got a fondness for that building? And I'm asking seriously because I just
know
don't.
where, I mean, a historical
Yeah.
perspective, like the gentleman from Forsyth said, that park has a lot of sentimental
Sure.
value and meaning to a lot of people in the area. So, but anyway, that I think it can be significantly improved within a cost-effective way. That would be very meaningful, but I'm not aware of any historical perspective.
Okay. I just didn't know. That building doesn't strike me as generating a whole lot of warmth
No, ma'am.
from the neighborhood, as opposed to the park, which certainly would. So,
Right.
okay.
Mary, let me say one thing very
Yes, sir.
quick, since you got involved in the discussion. That, just want to take this back in a little time. Of course, we have a lot of great parks, but you just want to share this with my colleagues here, the Patriots Park. We worked as a board in the past very diligently with some very fervent community involvement. That property, for historical purposes here this evening, was owned by J.B. Raines, who was a frequent attendee in our board meetings, and those meetings were never non-interesting. And we had a lot of comments about the use of that property and the acquisition of that property. And the then board, many terms ago, was able to acquire that property at a very reasonable price, because there were two properties there. You had the J.B. Raines junkyard, and you had the defense company. So we bought both of those properties at a very reasonable price, and the board back then was very careful in its deliberations about the particular use and scope of that park as to what should be the use of that park and what type of presence should be there given the location of it. So good to see some investment there, because when we passed there and the former junkyard owner, would come to the boards, and so we always had plenty to hear, and but we endured, and that has lot of history of those pools. When I pass by there, and I see that, and given what it used to look like, I mean, those who never had the opportunity to see the location, it used to be just full of junk, cars and other
Heard stories,
Well, I'm so glad you said that, because the reality is, I remember that very well, because my father owned the other piece of that, if you recall, and y'all straightened out the road, and JB would drive through town with a truck and a loudspeaker, and he would call everybody out. I mean, he called me out, he called my father out, he called the city attorney out. It was a fascinating time. So I do remember that as a junkyard very well. It's amusing to me. That's why I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat at you about that.
And in Closenberry, it's amazing how the intersection location looks now versus how it looked many years ago. So.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up, because it makes me smile. It was an interesting time. I would hear about it from long distance, I have to say, but I can remember the lawsuits and all that went with it. So.
I think he died with a lawsuit, didn't he?
Absolutely.
I think he died with a lawsuit, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably more than one.
Just one of them. Yeah, many lawsuits get you city.
Yes.
And I do want to know, since there were multiple iterations, I'll make sure and email everyone out just the latest and greatest, just to make sure, 100% clear on.
Okay,
what
well,
was
and
last.
if you would,
Yeah.
when you're redoing it, let's change it a bit to reflect the water fountain. Let's put some water fountains in there just so that they're noted. And whatever, it was something else that we talked about a little bit, just to add there. Oh, the lights for the J.L. King, show them in there as well, even though they may come from a different source.
Sure.
As an
Got it.
improvement, so.
Got it.
Cool. Okay, so that's kind of where we are and where we want to go with current parks. And then we have, you have the binder in front of you that's the 2018 master plan for Cornerstone. So what we want to see is what can we afford to do? And this is kind of the wish list. I mean, the cover is obviously beautiful. It's been on our website. So the goal is to, or my sense of it, what I would like to see us do is afford as much as we can with as high quality as we can. And while the master plan was developed with an idea of perhaps 13 or 15 fields, I believe that's going to be beyond our pocketbook to start with. So
May also be beyond our needs.
well, and it may very well be. It may very well be. But obviously, the goal of this is to not only be a recreation facility, but to be an economic development driver for us as we bring people into town for tournaments. And Alderman Walker is particularly well versed in tournaments because you go. I mean, you get up and leave town, and we'd love for you to stay in town, right? With all the kids
love
that
to be able to do that.
that would come in. And there's lots of people around town who feel that same way, and we hear from them. So from my perspective, what I'm hoping that we can do is basically have a good look at what the potential is and where we want to go, and see what we can afford to do. Ms. Sistrunk has, in her inimitable fashion, done some financial accounting. Did you pass that on?
There's terribly exciting stuff here, but this is the part that should help you get comfortable with what you decide you want to do next. So this first sheet is just sources and uses of funds for the parks, and we have some cash on hand right now. The 2% money adds to that every year. And then the 1% that's waiting for the governor's signature, and assuming that it passes an election here in town, will generate new money. What's a little different about that 1% money is that it stays with the city for parks. It's not split with other organizations. So that's
only.
In its entirety, yeah, parks only, as well as that 1% for hotel, which
Right.
we heretofore had not had access to. So that hotel and the food and beverages included in that same legislation, and so we would get the entire amount. Now, hotel is going to be roughly what, 100,000 a year or so?
115, 150, depends on.
I mean, obviously,
football
we
and that sort of
have
thing.
every expectation that it will grow as we are successful with the tournament facility, which clearly is jobs and assets and, additional ad valorem based on that. We had if y'all recall, a while ago, we had a hotel that was looking at going on the west side of town that did not end up pulling the trigger on that, but I think he would be very interested in coming back if we have some major activity going on the west side of town. So all of that hopefully will build, but I think Ms. Sistrunk has done it at a flat rate so that we aren't having any expectations that we can't then meet.
Absolutely, and so those are our sources for these capital type projects. We'll obviously still fund our park system with general funds, and that's an annual negotiation, but this money is restricted for improvements and capital projects. So that's where our money would come from. We budgeted this year about $300,000 for parks upgrades. We have some debt service, which is a little lower this year related to the Sportsplex. This year it's a little lower because of the refinancing. You'll see it ticks back up in 2020. And then there are a couple of loans that are being paid out of that fund. So if you add up your sources and subtract your uses, you get a balance. And I have just rolled that forward each year at a flat rate. In 2020, I have added most of the things that you've talked about for the fiscal year 20 capital improvements. Some of those actually could be pushed into this year because the cash is on hand. So bathrooms, those kind of things, I'd say we could actually get started with this year. I've added in cost associated with the new park. There'll be some startup costs, and that's a placeholder number, but it's within the realm of reasonable based on what we've heard from other places that have done parks. The first year debt service, I'm assuming, will be an interest-only 6-month kind of payment, and then we anticipate that we will probably have an outside agency managing this park, so starting to build in those operations fees. Assuming that the park would probably open October-ish of next year, so about 18 months from now. And then rolling those numbers forward, in 2021, there's full debt service in there and a full year of operations. What we see in other places is that as they ramp up, they actually get the operations cost, the management cost down to zero. So I think that we can expect that to happen here in Starkville as well. That $1.4 million would give us about $21 million a year. Well, a year, I wish a year.
Hello.
20, with our $3 billion fund, we'd be in business. It would give us about $21 million, which would be used for Cornerstone and for repurposing some of McKee and some of the converting the Sportsplex to more soccer complex, multi-purpose fields. So the Sportsplex, the other thing that would probably be important to know is that debt pays off in 2027. So this gets us well into the next board term, still having enough money at the end of the year that they'll be able to make their Sportsplex payment, and that's really the question is, or do we want to go forward with this? I think we can afford a good bit with that borrowing. Now the question becomes if the public agrees with us and wants to vote yes on the referendum for the 1%, but I think it's manageable. I think it would be something we need to monitor, obviously, and I don't think it leaves the next board in a bad position. I think it positions them to be able to carry this forward. I've budgeted everything flat. If we saw the annual increases in food and beverage and hotel that we would expect from inflation over historical averages, we would probably pick up another $60,000 a year. So that would just continue to grow. If we see increased tournaments, these numbers should go up as we have more people in town staying in hotels and eating out. But none of that is built in here. So this is what I'd call pretty conservative.
I'd say it's very conservative, because every year we've had some measure of growth, so.
3 to 7%.
Yeah, so to hold it absolutely flat, I think is very conservative.
And this page I'm just giving you because this kind of dates back to last fall. when I was talking with the person from Government Consultants who helps us a lot with this, and he was assuming $1.2 million in revenue that's available. I think we'll have a little more revenue available than that. And then showing us what we could borrow at 20, 25, and 30 years, assuming a 4.5% interest rate, which is again conservative. And that's just informational if you want it.
Alderman Walker, I thought.
Yeah, Alderman Strong, all right, so I just want to make sure that I'm clear. On the annual debt service for the Sportsplex, that is paid off in 2027.
It does.
And what is it looks like, so the fee goes, from 404 to 430 and back down to 424, so those remaining 4 years, is it around that same 400?
That 4.25, somewhere in there.
Okay. Well, I'll say that I think the thing that is proven over and over is that while the park in and of itself will take time and may not in and of itself make money, what it's going to do is generate money for the city via increased sales tax and people staying in hotels. And I think no better place than we see that is this is a mini version of what funds the bulk of our city right now, is that the events that happen at Mississippi State, where there's baseball and basketball and football and bringing people in, this is the same thing, just on a much smaller scale.
More consistent.
But more consistent.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where I think it really has the opportunity for more weekends throughout the year of being able to consistently build. And if we do it well, and if $21 million or $18 million is a lot of money, there is no question. But at the end of the day, you're only going to be able to get so much for that money. And I would rather have fewer fields of higher quality that meet all of our needs for the recreation 100%, and then still provide a great venue for being able to host and bring in tournaments. I think we have the ability to do that. I think that this master plan gets us a long way down that road, depending on who ultimately is the manager and the operator of this facility. Very likely has some say-so in how that does, and I'm willing to be flexible in terms of what this, but I think what this general plan gives us is a roadmap for how we could see this property build out over time. And I think that's exciting. And I think it gives a lot of room for growth and even more room, opportunity for parks, just community park space on the west side of town. The good news is our community is going to grow, and it's going to grow, and I do believe that this could help be a spark for increased development on that side of town, which I think would be very good, especially I think a hotel and some more retail would very likely show up for this.
I don't think that's even a pipe dream. I think that really is going to be one of
No,
those.
I don't think it is either. I think that'll happen. I think it comes down to us making sure that if we're going to do it, that we got to do it right, and that we have to. In order for this to happen, the citizens are going to have to vote, and they're going to have to come out and vote and say that we think this is a good idea. And I think part of that is I think they're going to have to be convinced that we can run it. That we can manage it and that we can operate it, and that we've got the funds in place to market it and do that. And I think this begins to show that we have that. I particularly like that upfront cost of $600 and the annual operations of $62 in that first year. I think the numbers in years 2 and 3 are going to be closer to that number than they are going down quickly. And I would like to see if we plan for that and can handle that, then I think we're going to be off to running. Because the places that we've looked at,
Well, and go ahead and talk about those, because we haven't really mentioned the prototype kind of thing that we're looking at.
So we've looked at a couple different places where groups are looking at a facility as a for-profit facility, where they would essentially be a lease from the city. We visited a place in Vicksburg. They have a brand new park, Sportsplex Park, on the Mississippi. They have combination soccer and baseball, softball fields, a little bit different than what we're proposing here. But this group leased from the city. The city pays an annual fee over the first 4 or 5 years while they're ramping up and to hopefully make the park profitable. and the city pays them X number of dollars for the recreation league. But other than that, they are in control. All the people that they hire are their people. They do all the marketing. They do all the operations. They're for all intents and purposes, they own the park in terms of the operations and bringing in tournaments.
And talk about the business model.
That's their business model.
Yeah, but I mean, that it kind of, they feed one another.
Yeah, and so these are folks that have places in different locations. So they have Vicksburg, they have Florida, they have Ohio, and there are other people out there that do the same thing. And so the part that gives me some assurances is that they have contacts with all the right people. They're bringing in people to Vicksburg that come down from Ohio because they know the quality of the experience that they're expecting to get. And so I think that's something that, from a marketing standpoint, if we're trying to convince the people, the restaurateurs and the hotel owners that yes, you have the potential for your food's going to go up a little bit, are we going to actually market and get something in return? I feel confident that having a group that is what they do and they know how to do that gives me more confidence and takes some of the burden off of us, quite frankly, or whoever's going to be sitting in our chairs to say that it's up to us to go make this happen. Still obviously involved and we're going to be there, but having the operations and the marketing, I think, is just a huge piece. And if the citizens vote and however we choose to go, I'll be fervent in saying that we have to make sure that we have a professional group in some capacity that is in charge of the operations and the management of the facility. And this has nothing to do, if we wanted to staff up to do it on ourselves, we're talking, at least 10 or 12 new full-time employees. And not to mention all the other seasonal employees. And so that number that you're talking about is equivalent to what we would be looking to pay these people for the first few years.
And the people that we're talking about they have on staff 8 to 10 full-time. And then they hire in the summer, it was like 80 to 100. Part-time as the tournaments were there. So it's a jobs creator for one, and it's a permanent jobs creator for 8 to 10 folks on a regular basis. And Mayor Flagg's in Vicksburg, they put that together, and this is the first one in Mississippi, and that's managed that way because the city of Oxford manages theirs.
Yeah.
So it's a different model.
I think both models work, and I think however, if we choose to go this route, we just got to find a way that we know that we have to, in order for it to work. The biggest concern that I've heard from citizens, all have been very excited about the potential for this, but the one hesitation has always been, are we going to maintain it and are we going to be able to operate it? I think that's a very fair question. And so I think we have to make sure and be able to show in here that yes, we have a plan for being able to do that. And for me, I think there's some merit in looking at what the opportunities are for an outside group that's their business, that's what they do, to see what they could offer us.
Yeah. Chris, are you still there?
I am.
Oh, hello. Okay. And the reason I call him Chris is because there's an RFP that we saw that Vicksburg put out that I asked Chris to take a look at just as a way for us to see what they did and how they laid it out. And so that would be something that we would do if we wanted to move forward with having someone else. If we don't get a bid or we don't get any interest or we don't like what we got, then we wouldn't have to. But there's an RFP opportunity out there for us to see how someone would potentially run our facility. So.
And these financials projections are based a lot on that Vicksburg model and on their contract. So their numbers, they start out with a fee of $250,000 the first year, and by year 5 they're supposed to go to 0. Their contract guarantees has some benchmarks for tournaments and participants that they're expecting, and then they did have an upfront startup cost that helps with getting the facility ready to open. I looked at their website, and they have tournaments scheduled out through I think August, and there's a week off here and there. But for the most part, they've got somebody in there every weekend, and a lot of them are from out of state. So.
Yeah, and I would say one of those things where I've been monitoring that too, just because I'm curious to see they're a new player into the market. And I would say it looks like they're picking up some momentum. There's some other places that are having more teams at their tournaments thus far. But it's also one of those things where when teams go once, then, you know, I fully expect that they're gonna gain some momentum. So I'm definitely watching that to see how that would translate for us, or if it would. But in the interactions that I had when we went down there, professional group that knows what they're doing and they're in it to try to turn a profit on their end, they're going to get out and hustle to try to get people to come to the park. And so I think that's ultimately what we want people to be in town and enjoy themselves and have a good time and have a first-class facility for all of the kids that grow up in the city and want to go play softball or baseball, a first-class place for them. And based on what I saw down there, that we're going to be able to deliver on that. I have no doubt that we're going to be able to deliver on a first-class place for kids to be able to play ball. So
It was pretty. And in fact, when we go down to, I know, Vice Mayor, you're not going to MML, but apparently Gulfport has a really nice facility as well. I know Alderman Little had said that they have a really nice facility, and I was hoping he might help us arrange a tour of Gulfport when we go down and take a look at it. Have you been to that one?
I have not been to that one.
I know years ago when my son was playing Disney Dean baseball, see, that was Middle Valley, Tennessee, were they?
Yep.
You ever been there?
Yep.
They got all those.
Yep. Nice. Yep.
Well, they had something like, I don't know how many fields. I forgot back then. That's when Marlin was playing, Marlin 47 now, but this one, because they won the Disney Dean World Series that year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people's from every state it was.
Yeah.
I mean, watch a game play at the same time. And that's,
I think it's
something like
great.
that. I think it was something like about 17, 18 fields.
Yeah.
And that was way
my.
back then.
Ooh.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think for us, I don't know what the number of fields are that makes sense. I think 8's a minimum number. I think you
Yes.
gotta have 8.
To hold the full tournament, it's
I think you gotta have 8, and I think if we could get to that 9 or 10, that would be even better. And I think as much flexibility as we can build in terms of size of fields, and portable fencing and all that, I think we got to find a balance there. That something that makes this uniquely Starkville and uniquely ours. And I think we have an opportunity to do that. I think the master plan for this gives us a roadmap to be able to do that, which I think is exciting.
Well, and since you're on a roll there, talk about the sort of the theme.
Well, what's been presented in the master plan, I think, is good. I think it pays homage to baseball great Cool Papa Bell from right here in Starkville, that I personally enjoy reading about all of that, and I think, you know, we certainly, the only marker that I'm aware of is that there's a marker in McKee Park that when you go there, that's certainly nice and gives a good history, and there's a uniform and a headshot in the Heritage Museum. But beyond that, I think that's the only thing that I'm aware of in Starkville, and I think there's an opportunity for us to celebrate that gentleman just a little bit more, and all he's meant for the community and baseball. And so I think building on that and the long history of baseball here, and with all the folks that come through our state, and not just Mississippi State, but players, I think we have a lot of opportunity to really think about how we can capitalize on that. And I think you see it right now with the significant additions and changes that they made at Duty Noble Field, and the number of people that are coming out there already compared to some of the other SEC schools that draw really well. I think we have a market that people want to come here, and they want to come here to watch baseball, and so I think people will come. Sort of don't want to sound like Kevin Costner and Field of Dreams, but I think if you build this, I think they'll come, and I think it'll take a little time to get going. It's not going to be overnight. You're not going to draw hundreds of teams, but I think we will come. We got the market for it. We got the capacity to do it. We're a place that people are going to want to be. So I think that's good if we do it right. And I think we got to be diligent. We got to make sure we're watching our money. We got to make sure we're watching what the people are proposing, and make sure that that's going to give us something that we want. And if we do that, we can have a very, very successful place. And while I believe that Joe Max and that group is going to be successful in getting industrial development out at the new industrial park, We don't know, there's no guaranteed timeline for when somebody's going to come in, and when they do, it's going to be big. But what I see this is incremental economic development. It is substantial money up front by our standards, but a big chunk of it is going to be that we're not taxing people in terms of property tax, which I think is a great way to do it. And all those people that are in town for the weekend right now watching ball games, they're buying Cokes and burgers and everything else, and that's what's helping fund this. And I think that's a good mechanism for us to do it. If we're going to make it happen, this is the only way to be able to make a project like this happen, I think, for us to be able to do that. So I don't know. I think now's the time is right. If we're going to do it, I think once the governor gets the signature, I'd like to figure us out a way if an RFP is the next step in that proposal, and figuring out what it is we need to do and try to go market it and convince people that this is going to be a quality thing and it's going to make Starkville better.
I'm doing
and I
handsprings.
Yeah, and
I think it's
I think it does. I really do think it has the capability of being able to do that. And I will say too that I do travel ball. My kid plays ball, but
He's about to
we're
age
2
out,
months
isn't he?
out. My kid's probably not going to get to play in this park, and that's okay. That's okay. I'd like for us to. I'd love for him to be able to play in this park. And if we make it that far, then great. But this is going to be for everybody that's coming up behind them, to give them a first-class place to play, and really be something that would be great for our community, in my mind.
I think it'd be awesome. I'm
It's
excited.
just like I never get to play Star Ride.
That's right. That's right. So you got to think about what this is
I
going to
never
be
did.
for.
Yeah, it's for
this
the
is-
future, no question about it.
This is economic development, and if you do it right, it has a chance to really do that, to drive development on that west side of town and bring folks here.
And you made 2 or 3 good points, and I'm going to try hard to remember what I wanted to say. I agree wholeheartedly. One was the idea of having an outside management group. We could do it in-house. They do it at FNC in Oxford, but the ramp-up period, the learning curve with the marketing, all that sort of thing, really, it really delays the success of this. Another important point that you made was that if we do this, let's build something that is top-notch, that we can maintain and plan for the future. There would be an opportunity for growth as that growth is, as there's a demand for that growth. So I think that's important. And when we talk about borrowing, it's not just that we need to borrow funds for. We will also be investing money significantly back over at the Sportsplex, taking those some of those baseball fields out. The softball fields would stay, but taking some of those baseball fields out and converting that to a soccer complex, multi-purpose fields. I think you work with some of those youth football teams and know how much of a demand there is for multi-purpose green space outside. And then over at McKee, that will be a little more expensive and probably would involve a turf field over there as well, soccer field over there as well. Over at McKee, baseball fields would come out, but it would be repurposed in a different way and wouldn't require as much of an investment. But a part of that borrowing does reflect having to make some changes or wanting to make some changes at those other 2 fields.
Well, I think we
There are
take
two parts.
the baseball fields out, and I think, Gary, you had said that just like sodding that area for just, open fielding would be fairly inexpensive, just to sod that area, put grass on it. So nothing de minimis again as we're looking at this. But I really do. I mean, I'm really excited because I think that I can see that quad, the 2 4s would have 8, and then a championship field would be an amazing thing to do. I just think it'd be way cool. So I'm pretty excited about it. And what I'm hoping is that we will take a look at, and Vice Mayor, we have, well, I say Vice Mayor, but I only do that because it's a contract. This is the contract that Vicksburg had with those folks, so I was going to say I will forward that to you, but I'll certainly forward it to everybody. I just know that from a contract standpoint, it would be something that you're more interested in than most of us. So,
Please forward it to me.
of course, yes. So anyway, we have that. We have the RFP, which is again a sample that I'll forward to folks too. That was the Vicksburg sort of the sample that we use to look at. So and what I would like to see is just have a quick discussion, because come Tuesday night, I'm assuming the governor's going to sign this week, and that we can put it on the board meeting to have that resolution go forward with an election. So from my perspective, I'm thinking June, and I'm thinking June because it gives you like 2 months for us to hold an election, say on the second Tuesday, so we aren't fighting our board meeting. The second Tuesday in June, which I think is the 9th. Is that right, Lisa? Did we look at that date? I think it was. Okay. Well, anyway, the second Tuesday in June would keep us out of our board meeting and give us about 2 months to meet, 1 month to meet the 21-day requirement, and then to have the opportunity to get out there and talk to the public so that everybody's aware and can make a decision. So does that chew on it? Does that? But that's kind of what I was thinking. And if you have any other thoughts, please speak up.
And Mayor, the voting will be done by the voting machine at all locations.
Forever.
You have my support.
And so the advanced work will be done to coordinate that with all the interested parties, including the county. So everything will coincide, and that legislation also, which Mr. Ladder will get done, requires publication at least 3 times, and it has certain time periods that have to be complied with. I'm certain that he has already got that together in the resolution that he's going to have for us. But I've read the bill.
Yeah, it's very specific in that bill,
So
isn't
I
it?
think the only difference is just the percentage that's required for passage. But I read it,
Yes.
the entire bill that was
Yeah,
forwarded.
it'll be 60%,
Right.
and that's
That's
the
hard.
only way that the legislature would be comfortable with us moving forward with it. So, it'll take that, but I think that if we can share with our community the impact that this would have, the opportunity for jobs, the opportunity for recreation, the opportunity for quality of life, that hopefully they will see that the same way, and we'll be able to move forward.
Alderman Walker, I got a question for you. Did they ever say what the bottom line figure for, if they manage it, we bought it, and then they manage it? Did anybody got a bottom line figure of what they charge, what they fee will for managing it?
Well,
In the
Because if so, really, it belongs to us. The only thing we doing, we just leasing it to them to manage it.
It's still
Right.
ours. I mean, when I
Yes.
said they own,
Yes.
they don't own it. They
That's what I'm
lease it,
saying.
but for.
But still, what is the figure for them if we decide to let
Okay.
somebody else manage it for us? What is the figure?
management for year 1 in this contract, and I hope I'm pulling the right page, because it says management year 1.
But it may be different for us.
Yes, obviously,
Yes.
but for Vicksburg, management for year 1 was $225,000, year 2 was 200, year 3 was 200, year 4 was 225, and the 5th year thereafter, it was 0.
Because they're expecting to be at a.
Yeah, 'cause they're expecting to be profitable.
They'll have registration fees, they'll have revenues from sponsorships, they'll have concessions.
Right.
They.
Sound better, let somebody else manage, let somebody.
Turn-
It
qualified
does,
to
doesn't it?
manage
Turnkey,
it.
a
Sound better.
turnkey operation.
And so that's
Well,
what I'm
and
saying. It sounds better, and that's where we need other people to really look at that contract and figure out, to
Right.
make sure that we're doing our due diligence.
Right.
And if
And
things don't work out, we have an
Yeah.
option. to-
This is a 20-year contract. Obviously, you always have an opt-out of some kind, but
That's
this is
right.
a 20-year contract. And actually, it's a 10-year contract with a renewal, because those bonds for Vicksburg, I think, were also 10 years,
10
as
years,
ours are.
renewal.
So they've got a 10-year contract with a renewal up to 20 years. So it all kind of ties in with what they're doing. But we can take a look at that as how we want to go forward. But I think Jason's absolutely correct that, this is one of those things that they're already ramped up. And what they're doing and selling, and if you go on the Sports Force website, and they're not the only ones doing it, but
No,
I think there are
there's a couple
two.
others.
What's the other name of the one, Mr. Logan?
Sports facility management
Okay.
is another, and that's, they're by no means the only two. There's lots of options, but sports
Right.
facility management is one I'm very familiar with.
Putting out that RFP. I think Vicksburg actually only had one who came in with that, and that was Sports Force. But anyway, we can take a look and see. But putting out an RFP, and I think the resolution is the next step, to be quite honest. And then the RFP from there and the contract will, everybody can look at that and bless it one way or the other. But I think it's a matter of we determine what we can afford, and then we want to move forward, and we can come back and massage the parks to be what we need them to be and how we want to go forward with those. So is there something else about any of this that creates questions or discussion points before we kind of roll out of here?
I'd like to just say that I know that with this board, one of our big commitments was to parks, streets and parks. And I think we're seeing, starting to see what's happening with the parks and that commitment. I think the capital project plan that you have there is going to be something that the community can see and can see that we're going to make this a priority, and we can do it.
We gotta make sure we fix these streets for them, though.
We're working on
We gotta
streets.
make sure
We're
we
working
get
on
these
streets
for
Working
them.
on
too.
the streets
And
too, absolutely.
some of this
Yeah.
drainage and these,
And that's,
well, we keep digging into asphalt, soon as we put it down, we digging into it, trying to fix some of these pipes.
I
We
know.
get some of that, and,
Well,
you know,
and that's-
maybe
and
they
that's-
will buy into it, and if
That's-
we can do what our part.
But you need to be proud, because that's the other thing we've done with Pleasant Acres. I mean, that's a very proactive way to deal with that infrastructure. And I think we're gonna do that all over town, and that's our future, and that's making that difference.
You got to, you gonna have to do it all over town. 'Cause I got a couple of areas in my town been dug in 5 times.
I know.
So,
Me too.
He know,
Me too.
He know in order for us to, and one of them is coming up on overlay. And so in order for the overlay, they got to clean it. They got to
Well,
clean the
maybe
sewer.
we
They got
fix
to
that
clean the whole
section
section
underneath
up.
it
They gotta clean the
before
whole
we ever
section up.
get that overlay. And that's a planning thing. But I really think this board ought to be very proud of what y'all have been able to move forward with, because these are incredible improvements to what we're doing. These are economic development improvements, your basic quality of life infrastructure improvements, and I just think this is an extraordinary opportunity for us. These windows and these doors don't open very often.
No.
And we're taking advantage of it, and I just think it's great, so.
and if anybody asks, and y'all all know, but just if anybody asks, these monies can only be used for parks.
Right, no, that's absolutely correct.
And just one thing to add on this, Honorable Budget Chair, the legislation is very specific. It has to have a separate fund, it has to be audited by the certified public accountant. We'll get those funds on the 15th day of the month,
Right.
all the day that the money is collected, and we'll get all the money less 3%
Right.
that the Department of Revenue retained for the administration and collection of funds.
It's like our 2%.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
and we know how to treat that stuff, because we've been doing it for 20 years, so, we're in good shape, and I think that's another thing that we have that others don't necessarily have, is some history of having managed those things, so.
That's right.
Cool.
What's your idea, how many fields? 8 to 10?
I think 8 to 10 is ideally where we're gonna.
Where we start.
I think that's where you start
Where
in
you start.
terms of the money.
And you can add some more
And
as
then
you
you could
go.
always add more. But I think in my mind, I'm thinking 8 to 10 is probably where the money's gonna end up being when it's all said and done.
Well, let's talk about that just for a second, because we're talking turf infields, right? And grass outfields, right? For the 8 fields?
Well, I think
Have we figured we could,
I think the potential is, I think they're looking for all synthetic. And so we'll have to see what the cost is going to be for all synthetic field versus all synthetic infield
Fields.
and outfield. And we'll have to look to see what the difference between the costs are.
well, I was hoping, I mean, the championship field, which is, I think that's a huge selling point, would be all turf, but,
Championship field, yeah.
Wouldn't that
I
be
can see
awesome?
that, yeah.
The championship
Well, we'll
field's
see.
just gonna be
And I
awesome.
think, and that was one of the discussion points when we went to this group, is that all those fields are all synthetic. And so they have the equipment to manage that. If you start mixing in that same facility, synthetic and regular turf, then you're increasing the amount of equipment and the type of way you have to manage it. So it may very well be that it's a combination or one or the other, and I think that's yet to be determined. I don't think there's any doubt that we're gonna have, when people are going to play on these fields now, they're expecting that synthetic primarily because you're going to have very few times where you don't actually get to play ball. And when
No
people
rain
drive and they
outside.
spend money to stay in a
Rain,
hotel,
still can play.
when you're in a hotel, you're expecting that you're gonna get to play ball.
Regardless.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, I just think it's wonderful, and I'm so appreciative that y'all are positive and that everybody is ready to roll with this, I think, so. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we can call ourselves adjourned, and we will see y'all on Tuesday night.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Y'all have a good one.